Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are really digging into something pretty powerful, maybe even a bit intimidating, in real estate investing, the BRRRR method. That's BRRRR. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat.
Yeah, and it sounds like just a catchy acronym, right? But it's way more than that. It's really a full operational blueprint.
A system.
Exactly, a very systematic approach designed to help you, the investor, scale up a rental portfolio fast, basically by cycling your capital really efficiently.
So our mission today is going to give you the master class on this.
Yeah.
The requirements, the system, the blueprint for moving, I guess, from just thinking about yearly income.
Right.
To building actual long-term wealth, the kind that sticks around for decades.
And that distinction is critical to start with. Income versus wealth. You could have a fantastic year, make $1 million income.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, but if you spend $1.5 million, well, you're actually going backwards, aren't you? Wealth is what you accumulate, what you hold on to over time.
And BRRR is all about taking whatever cash you start with and putting it on this perpetual growth cycle. Using leverage.
Intense leverage, deliberate leverage. It's like the difference between just getting handed a fish to eat versus owning the fishing boat that keeps catching fish for you day in, day out.
I like that analogy.
And to make that work, you got to shift your focus. It's not just about the big financial goals, the outcomes. You have to obsess over the process.
The system itself.
The BRRR system. If you remember, Atomic Habits teaches us, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Right. Consistency, structure. That's the game here.
Absolutely. And that structure leans heavily on leverage, which is, the key for getting started, especially if you don't have a huge pile of cash sitting around.
Because normally banks are pretty tight with investment properties. Yeah, they want big down payments.
Oh, yeah. Super cautious. Often you're looking at 20, maybe even 30% down for a conventional rental loan.
Why so much?
Well, think about it. You're not living there. There's no personal, I got to keep a roof over my head attachment.
Okay.
So the bank wants proof you're just as committed. That big chunk of equity, that's your skin in the game. It makes it really painful for you to just walk away if things get rocky for a bit.
Like if cash flow dips or you get hit with a big repair.
Exactly. They want you locked in, serious skin in the game.
So, okay, if 20-30% down is the norm, how does someone new get past that? How do they use leverage early on?
Well, that often leads to this concept of buy and live. You might know it as house hacking.
Ah, house hacking. Okay.
It's basically a strategic way to get those really good owner-occupied loan terms. Little or maybe even no money down, but you're still treating it like an investment from day one.
Gotcha. So you live in it initially.
Right. We have some great examples, like the investor who bought a small duplex, moved into one side.
Fix up the other unit while living there.
Exactly. And then they rented out that fixed up unit.
And how did that work out financially?
It was like the ultimate leverage payoff. The tenant paid $650 a month in rent. His total mortgage payment, $630.
No way.
Yeah. He was literally getting paid $20 a month to live in his own place.
Which was now making him money.
An income-producing asset right from the start. That low down payment was the launchpad.
That just crushes the barrier to entry. There's another example too, right? Michael, who started small.
Yeah, Michael's story is great because it shows that aha moment, that thing that pushes you into the repeat part of BRRR.
Okay.
He bought a condo, $135,000. After all the expenses, it was cash flowing about $335 a month. Solid, right?
Decent start.
But then he had the realization, 3-bedroom condos, they didn't cost that much more than the 1 or 2 bedrooms.
But the rent potential was higher.
Significantly higher, sometimes $500, $600 a month cash flow. So by targeting those multi-bedroom places or multifamily as your first place, your primary residence.
Use the tenant income to cover the mortgage.
And generate cash flow immediately. That sets the whole foundation for the BRRR system later on.
Okay, that brings us perfectly to the first B, buy. You said it before, if the system is key, the input, the deal has to be right.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
The success of this whole leveraged cycle, it completely hinges on finding the right deal.
Not just important, but priority number one.
There's zero substitute for it. You have to buy right. We're not looking for just any house at market price.
No.
We need maximum profit margin baked into that purchase price from the get-go. We need what the sources call hot leads.
Hot leads.
Yep.
Okay, define that.
These are deals way more likely to fit our strict criteria, usually because there's some kind of distress involved, or the seller is just really motivated to sell quickly.
So we're looking for situations where the seller's urgency gives us a discount.
A discount we can then turn into forced appreciation later in the rehab phase. That's the goal.
And the ultimate goal, long term.
Long term, you want to become so known, so respected in your local market that you're not even hunting anymore. The best investors, they reach a point where these hot leads, the perfect BRRR deals, they just get brought straight to them.
By agents, wholesalers?
Yeah, even other investors who know you can close fast and reliably. That's real efficiency.
Okay, but until we're that person, we got to negotiate.
Yeah.
And dealing with motivated sellers, that sounds like it could get emotional, tricky.
No, it can be. Preparation is absolutely everything here. You need to be mentally ready, physically ready.
Like rested, fed.
Exactly. If you're the buyer, try to control the timing, the location of the negotiation. Be rested, eat beforehand so your blood sugar isn't crashing. Think through your whole plan.
And if it starts going sideways?
Take a break. Regroup. If you feel yourself getting emotional or it's just not going your way, step back. The prepared, mentally detached buyer, that's the one in control.
Okay. And you mentioned a big mistake rookies make when there's a price gap.
Yes. Classic psychological trap. Never, ever be the one to offer to split the difference.
Why not? Seems fair.
It seems fair, but you lose leverage. If there's a $10 K gap and you say, let's split it, the seller might just say no, thinking you've got more room to come up. You need to hold your ground. Let them propose splitting it. Once they say it, they've kind of committed themselves to that lower price. It's much harder for them to backtrack then.
That's subtle.
Yeah.
Smart. Okay, what about finding deals that aren't even officially for sale, or maybe they're listed but not selling? How do you approach those without messing with commissions?
Yeah, this needs patience and precision. Never call the agent or the owner while it's actively listed. That's unethical, and it could make the seller owe a commission anyway.
So what's the move?
You write the owner a letter, a very specific, detailed letter. You state the price and the terms you'd consider, but only after their listing agreement expires.
So you're basically planting a seed. Hey, if your agent doesn't sell it, call me. Here's my offer.
Precisely. It lets you negotiate directly later, commission-free, once that listing contract is dead. It's a patient play for off-market stuff.
But deals need funding. And if you're scaling fast with BRRR, your own cash runs out quick. You mentioned OPM earlier, other people's money. Private financing.
Yeah, private financing is really the engine for the repeat step. It's just one person lending money directly to another. And for investment properties, it's often way better than using, say, hard money loans.
Why is that? Hard money is common, right?
It is, but it's usually much more expensive, higher interest rates, more points up front, and the loan terms are really short. That puts immense pressure on your BRRRR timeline. Private money can be much more flexible on rates and terms, especially once you build a track record.
Okay, but how does a newbie, maybe someone who's only done one or two deals, actually get people to lend them private money? Seems like a big ask.
It's all about relationships and transparency. You're not just asking for cash. You're offering them a solid investment opportunity. It's secured by real estate, usually pays them a good return.
So how do you find these people?
Relentless networking. Go to every local real estate meetup. Talk about your system, your process. Build trust by doing exactly what you say you'll do on those first few deals. You need to convince potential lenders that your system is safe, predictable.
And once you get a few.
They often refer others. It creates this pool of capital that lets you keep going long after your own money is tied up.
Which really shifts the focus, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about finding the deal, it's about finding the talent to help you find deals and funding. Which brings us to your core 4 team.
Exactly. Building that team, finding that talent should honestly be priority number 1, even before finding the first property sometimes. Think about it. Finding one amazing rock star real estate agent, that's way more valuable than finding one single good deal.
Because the agent brings multiple deals over time.
Many deals. A great agent, they know the market inside out, down to the block level. They're creative with structuring offers. They know how to close efficiently.
So how do you spot one? What makes an agent a rock star?
Yeah. They probably won't be trying too hard to impress you with flashy sales talk. They have their own process, a system they trust.
And they expect you to follow it.
Yeah, especially if you're newer. They're focused on educating you, figuring out if you're serious and systematic too. They don't have time to waste if you're not going to close. A rockstar agent wants a rockstar partner.
Which loops back to that idea. Rock stars know rock stars. Your network is your net worth.
It really is. And it comes down to how you operate. You got to act like the best, operate with integrity, treat everyone, title agents, contractors, lenders, everyone with respect, even people who can't immediately do something for you.
That reputation builds the network.
And that network fuels the whole thing. Hot leads, OPM, it all flows from there.
All right, so we bought it right. Great deal. Maybe used some OPM, got help from our rock star agent. Now the pressure's on because we need that property value to jump up for the refinance later. This throws us into the first RA.
Yeah, this is where like the real magic happens in real estate. You're literally manufacturing value, taking something distressed and through hard work and smart choices, making it worth a lot more.
It's all about forced appreciation.
Exactly. You're deliberately spending money on repairs and upgrades, but the key is the value you add has to be significantly more than what you actually spent.
Let's break that down. Why is that so vital? If my total cost purchase plus rehab is, say, $70,000, why isn't it enough for the house to just appraise for $70,000?
Because of the refinance step coming later. Remember, leverage. When you go to refinance an investment property, the bank will typically only lend you 70, maybe 80% of the new appraised the after repair value, or ARV.
Okay.
So if you have $70,000 total invested and the bank only gives you 75% of the appraised value back,
Carry the one.
you'd need the house to appraise for over $93,000 just to get your original $70K back out.
Just to break even on your cash investment.
Right. Especially if you used short-term money like hard money, you need that cash back to pay them off and move on. So forcing that extra $23,000, $30,000, whatever it is, in equity, it's not a bonus, it's essential for the BRRR cycle to work.
Wow, okay. That makes the rehab phase super high stakes then. Every single choice, paint color, countertop material, needs to be viewed through the lens of appraisal value.
And staging, yeah. Not just what looks nice to you. Think about the appraiser walking through. Think about potential tenants or future buyers. What creates the best first impression?
So focus on curb appeal, kitchens, baths.
Definitely. Those high-impact areas usually give you the most bang for your buck in terms of forced appreciation. Declutter, depersonalize, make it easy for someone else to imagine living there.
Now, estimating those rehab costs accurately sounds crucial. We can't just guess, oh, kitchen maybe $10K.
Absolutely not. That's a recipe for disaster. Too many variables, location, materials, contractor costs. The pros use what's called the breakdown technique.
Breakdown technique, explain that.
Instead of a lump sum per room, you break it down into super specific granular tasks. Not just kitchen rehab, but replace countertops, $6, install new cabinets, $1, new backsplash tile, $1, run new plumbing line, $1. Every single item.
Let's get specific. Examples from the sources, maybe starting outside. Curb appeal matters.
Huge. Okay, landscaping. Don't just budget landscaping. Budget trim 3 large oak trees, $75 to $250 per tree. Or install new sod, $0.40 per square foot. Get quotes, measure it out.
Quantify everything. What about big stuff like the roof?
Roof and gutters, yeah. Due diligence before you buy is key here. Check the sheathing, that's the wood under the shingles. Look up from the attic if you can. Water damage there. Budget killer.
Right.
Gutters and downspouts are usually priced per linear foot, often done with the roof. Exterior paint. Estimate maybe $1 to $2 per square foot of floor space, but get actual bids.
Okay, moving inside. Plumbing, HVAC, those systems can hide expensive problems. What pitfalls should new investors budget for?
Plumbing-wise, know about the main stack. That's the big drain pipe that goes up through the roof to vent sewer gases. Problems there are costly. Also, a subtle thing, if you replace vanities or kitchen cabinets,
Yeah.
the plumber often has to pull the existing faucets and reinstall them, even if you plan to keep the sink. The labor involved means it's often not much more expensive to just put in a brand new modern faucet. Boosts appeal, boosts ARV.
Good tip. And HVAC. Always scary.
It is. And remember, pros charge a minimum service call fee just to show up, so even a small diagnosis costs money. If the system isn't new, you absolutely must budget for maintenance, maybe potential repairs. Appraisers always check the age and condition of the furnace and AC.
Makes sense. What about the look and feel? Colors, lighting?
Hugely important for that emotional response from appraisers or tenants. You generally want to balance warm, dominant colors like tans or creams with cooler accent colors, maybe subtle blues or greens to make it feel energized but welcoming.
And lighting.
Critical. Lots of showings happen in the evening. Are the exterior lights working? Clean? Do they match the house style? Budget for replacing or updating fixtures. It's part of that detailed breakdown.
Even something simple like doors can have hidden costs, right?
Right. Yeah, installers often prefer to charge for pre-hung doors. That's the door slab already mounted in its frame or jamb.
Instead of just replacing the door itself.
Right, because getting just a new door slab to fit perfectly into an old jamb, sealing right, not sticking, it can be really tricky and time-consuming. So the pre-hung unit, while costing more for materials, might save on labor overall,
The bottom line is detail, detail, detail in the estimate.
so that the value you force is real, profitable, and gets you the money you need back out in the refinance.
Okay, rehab complete, value forced. Now we hit the second RO, rent. Getting cash flow started is obviously key, but the bigger picture here is finding good tenants and keeping them right, avoiding turnover.
Absolutely. Turnover is a killer. Vacancy, cleaning, repairs, finding new tenants, it eats into your profits and your sanity. So the long-term goal is attracting high-quality, low-maintenance tenants. Minimize that friction, avoid landlord burnout.
So what's the strategy? Just charge top dollar.
Actually, counterintuitively, no. One really effective strategy is to set your rent just slightly below the absolute top of the market rate for that area.
Below market. Why?
Combine that with charging a larger than average security deposit. And, of course, keep the property in excellent condition.
Okay, explain the logic there. Lower rent seems like leaving money on the table.
You're creating an incentive structure. The slightly lower rent attracts good, stable tenants who recognize the value and are more likely to stay long-term and take care of the place. The higher security deposit, that naturally screens out tenants who might be struggling financially or are more transient. They often can't pull together the larger deposit.
Ah, so it filters the applicant pool.
Exactly. This combo significantly cuts down turnover costs, which, trust me, usually saves you way more than the tiny bit of rent you left on the table.
Smart. But the screening process itself has to be rigorous, non-negotiable.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Remember this, an empty house is always, always better than a house with a bad tenant who doesn't pay or wrecks the place.
So you set standards and stick to them.
Set minimum standards, credit score, income-to-rent ratio, employment history, whatever, and stick to them religiously. Zero exceptions. Doesn't matter how nice their story is.
How do you dig deeper than just the application form? Any advanced screening tricks?
Yeah, use that initial showing, the small talk, strategically. Casually ask prospects, hey, have you had any credit issues in the past?
Why does that work?
Because people often assume you're going to find out anyway when you run their credit. So in a casual chat, they're surprisingly likely to just tell you about problems they know will pop up.
Interesting. What else?
Obviously, get that signed release of information on the application so you can legally verify everything. And never just trust the phone number they give you for their job. Call the company's main line. Ask for HR or their direct manager. Verify income, verify employment status independently.
That verification is key, but you also have to worry about fair housing laws. How do you screen tough without getting sued?
Crucial point. You absolutely must avoid anything that looks like discrimination. The key is consistency and objective standards.
Meaning?
Offer an application to everyone who asks for one, even if you have a gut feeling they won't qualify. You can't prejudge.
Okay.
Then you evaluate all applications against your preset written minimum standards. If someone doesn't meet standard X or Y, you send them a formal denial letter. And the letter specifically states why they were denied, citing the objective standard they didn't meet. Like, your application was denied because your reported income of 0 ZIA does not meet our minimum requirement of 3x the monthly rent.
Objective, documented, consistent.
That's how you stay compliant and avoid complaints.
Okay, got the perfect tenant, now the lease. What needs to be absolutely ironclad in that document?
Late fees are a big one. Structure them to encourage prompt payment, not just a flat fee, but maybe a flat fee plus a daily late fee. Say $40 if it's late, plus another $10 for every single day it remains late. That creates urgency.
It's their attention fast.
Exactly. Also, clearly define landlord access rules. When can you enter? Emergencies, repairs, showings. Follow your state and local laws precisely on notice requirements.
And maintain professional distance, right? Don't become buddies with your tenants.
Oh, absolutely. This is a business. Never give out your personal home address. Avoid picking up rent checks in person if you can help it. Use online portals, mail, direct deposit, keep it professional. Blurring those lines just leads to problems and burnout.
Speaking of managing, what are the options? Do it all yourself? Hire someone.
You have options. For smaller portfolios, maybe a duplex or fourplex, a resident manager can be great. Someone who lives on site maybe gets a rent discount.
What do they handle?
Basic stuff, usually. Lawn care, maybe minor repairs, showing vacant units, signing leases. It lightens your load. It's usually cheaper than a pro company. and you still keep pretty direct control.
And the alternative, professional property management.
Yeah, the pros, they handle everything. The office, the paperwork, the tenant calls, coordinating contractors. They often get volume discounts on repairs too.
Sounds good for scaling. Lets you focus on finding the next deal.
It does. But the big caution flag here is finding a good one. It's notoriously hard to find a management company that will care for your property with the same diligence you would.
Because it's not their money on the line.
Exactly. It's not their capital, not their personal liability. So you have to vet property management companies just as rigorously as you vet your tenants. Get references, understand their fees, read their contract very, very carefully.
Okay, bought right. Rehab smart, rented to a great tenant who's paying on time. Now we arrive at the real engine of the BRRR cycle, the step that lets you do it again. The third R, refinance.
This is it. This is the payoff mechanism. This is where you take all that equity you manufactured through the rehab.
Forced appreciation.
Right. Plus any equity you gain just from the tenant paying down the mortgage month after month. And you turn that trapped equity back into liquid cash. Cash you can use for the next deal. This step proves the whole system works.
And its success hangs entirely on that loan-to-value ratio, the LTV, that the bank uses on the new appraisal, right?
Precisely. The property has to appraise high enough after the rehab relative to whatever debt you still have on it so that the bank's new loan, usually 70–80% of that new value, is enough to pay off the old debt and give you back most, if not all, of your original invested cash.
Let's use that big example again to show the power. Investor has a property now worth $4.5 million. Existing mortgage is $2 million. They go for a cash-out refi at 75% LTV.
Okay, so 75% of $4.5 million. That's a maximum new loan amount of $3,375,000.
Right. That's the new total debt the bank is willing to put on the property.
So from that $3.375 million, first you have to pay off the old $2 million mortgage.
Leaving $1,375,000.
Exactly. $1.375 million is the cash that comes back to the investor's pocket. Tax-free, by the way, because it's loan proceeds, not income. However, just to be clear, our source material mentioned an example where the investor got $2.5 million back out, 4.5M value, 2M debt. That might imply, some specific commercial terms or maybe other collateral involved, allowing a higher LTV pullout in that particular case.
But the core mechanism is the same, regardless of the exact numbers. You force value, the appraisal confirms it, the new loan pays off the old debt and returns your initial capital.
Making your investment in that property essentially zero cash out of pocket at that point. You've used the bank's money to repay yourself. Now you take that cash and go find the next deal. You repeat.
But this relies on being able to refinance relatively quickly. Are there loan terms investors need to watch out for that could block this?
Oh, absolutely. Huge pitfalls here. If you plan to BRRRR and refinance within, say, the first few years of owning a property, you must avoid loans with prepayment penalties like yield maintenance or defeasance.
Okay, sound nasty. Break those down simply.
Yield maintenance basically means if you pay off the loan early and interest rates have dropped since you took out the loan, you have to pay the lender a penalty that makes up for the interest income they're now losing. They get the same yield as if you'd kept the loan.
Ouch. And defeasance.
Even more complex, and usually for larger commercial loans. It forces you to buy a portfolio of government bonds, like treasuries, that generates the exact same cash flow as your remaining mortgage payments. You substitute that bond portfolio for the property as the lender's collateral.
Both sound incredibly expensive and complicated.
Prohibitively expensive. They're designed specifically to stop you from refinancing or selling before the loan matures. If BRRRR is your strategy, these clauses are deal killers. Read the loan docs carefully. Avoid them like the plague.
Good warning, because avoiding those lets you execute the final R repeat. And this relies on consistently using leverage, right? Magnifying returns to scale up.
Exactly. Low down payments, pulling your cash back out, it magnifies your return on the actual cash you have invested. That's how you go from one property to 5, then 5 to 20.
But leverage cuts both ways. We have to talk about risk.
Absolutely critical. Leverage is your best friend when property values are climbing, but it becomes your worst enemy if values fall. It magnifies losses just as powerfully.
We've seen markets get irrational, right? Like stocks in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, one source mentioned how fear took over. Investors got irrationally pessimistic. Price-to-earnings multiples on the S&P 500 got slashed by almost 2/3. People just panicked.
What happens if that kind of panic hits a highly leveraged real estate portfolio?
Values can plummet fast. If you're leveraged at, say, 75% LTV, A 25% drop in market value theoretically wipes out all your equity. Poof, gone.
So you need reserves. You need to understand market cycles.
You absolutely need cash reserves. You need to underwrite deals conservatively and understand that markets don't always go up. Being prepared for downturns is key to surviving long enough to actually repeat successfully.
Okay, let's shift to tools that help with the long game, the wealth building part. Taxes are huge. What incentives does the government offer real estate investors? Let's start with depreciation.
Depreciation is beautiful. It's a non-cash deduction. The IRS lets you deduct a portion of the building's value, not the land, just the structure from your taxable income each year.
So it lowers your tax bill even though you didn't actually spend that money that year.
Exactly. It reflects the theoretical wear and tear on the building. The key is separating the building value from the land value.
How do you do that effectively?
Best practice. Check with your local county tax assessor's office. They usually have an official assessment that splits the value between land and improvements, the building. Using their allocation gives you solid ground with the IRS to maximize that building value percentage, which means a bigger depreciation deduction each year. More cash flow stays in your pocket.
Nice. Okay, second big tool, especially for the repeat phase when you sell one property to buy another, the 1031 like-kind exchange. Sounds technical.
It is technical, but it's the linchpin for tax-deferred growth. Section 131 of the tax code lets you sell an investment property, take all the proceeds, including the profit, and reinvest that money into another like-kind investment property.
Without paying capital gains tax now.
Exactly. You defer the tax. It allows your entire chunk of equity to keep working for you in the next deal instead of losing a big slice to Uncle Sam right away. It's how portfolios grow exponentially faster.
But there are strict rules, right? It's not automatic.
Oh, incredibly strict. And the timelines are brutal. This is where people mess up. From the day you close the sale on the property you're selling,
Day zero.
you have only 45 calendar days. Weekends, holidays, everything counts to formally identify potential replacement properties in writing.
45 days isn't long to find the next deal.
It's tight. And then you only have a total of 180 calendar days from that initial sale closing date to actually close on the purchase of one or more of those identified replacement properties.
Miss either deadline.
Boom. The entire deferred capital gain becomes taxable in the year you sold the first property. Huge tax hit you weren't expecting, adds massive pressure to the repeat step. Discipline is paramount.
So navigating depreciation, 1031s, all this complex stuff, it often comes down to how you work with your advisors, like your CPA.
Totally. Mindset matters. Don't just ask your CPA, hey, can I deduct this? What's the easiest answer for them?
Probably no. Less work, less risk for them.
Exactly. Instead, you got to shift the question. Ask, how can I deduct this? Or how can we structure this deal to qualify for a 1031?
That one word change, how instead of can, makes a difference.
Huge difference. It forces them out of a simple yes-no box and into problem-solving mode. They start thinking creatively, legally about how to achieve your goal, turns them from a gatekeeper into a strategist.
Love that. So that focus on systems, smart leverage, maximizing deductions, that fuels the final repeats. This is where compounding kicks in.
That's the long game. Like those atomic habits, right? Small, consistent actions, buying a property, rehabbing, refinancing. They might not seem like much at first, but you repeat the cycle again and again.
The results start stacking up.
Exactly. The most powerful effects of compounding are always delayed. But stick with the BRRRR system, and eventually you hit that critical threshold where the portfolio growth really takes off. You're building serious wealth, one house at a time.
And this isn't just a young person's game, is it? The sources mentioned longevity.
Yeah. Owning and managing property, you can do that practically your whole life. Staying active, managing your finances, making strategic decisions, it keeps you sharp. Often leads to better decisions overall, frankly.
And it ties back to that core idea. Experience matters.
Right. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience often comes from, well, making mistakes from bad judgment initially. But the beauty of BRRR, if you do that first step right,
Buy it right.
if you buy it right with enough margin, most mistakes you make along the way, hiring the wrong contractor, underestimating a repair, they're survivable. You learn, you adjust, and you fuel the next repeat cycle.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive really paints the BRRR method as this like powerful, self-contained system.
Yeah.
It's all driven by finding those distressed deals, forcing the value up through smart rehab, getting solid cash flow, and then crucially recycling that capital with the refinance.
Yeah, it's a complete cycle, but it absolutely demands organization, methodical discipline, which eventually just becomes habit, almost desire. And keeping your eye on the big picture, the big models, the long-term goal of scaling that portfolio.
Now, we talked about buying distressed assets and forcing appreciation, but it's worth touching on why some areas become distressed historically. Our sources pointed to some really specific factors, like early federal housing policies.
That's right. It wasn't always just market forces. Early FHA appraisal manuals, for instance, actually baked in lower valuations for neighborhoods if they lacked quote-unquote compatibility among the neighborhood occupants.
Which was basically code for segregation.
It effectively institutionalized it through lending practices. There's even documented history of the FHA approving loans for new developments only after the builders literally put up walls, like 6-foot-high concrete walls, to physically separate the new project from an existing minority neighborhood.
Wow. So those historical policies directly contributed to creating some of the very distressed areas where BRR investors might look today.
Undeniably, they played a significant role in the disinvestment and value decline in certain communities, creating the conditions that decades later might look like an opportunity for forced appreciation.
Okay, so that leads to a really interesting final thought for our listeners, connecting that history to today's strategy. When a savvy investor uses this BRRR blueprint, goes into what people call a turnaround neighborhood, and successfully forces appreciation, driving values up, what are the ripple effects?
Yeah, what are the broader economic impacts, the long-term community consequences when these areas transform rapidly, often pushing values way up? Is there a responsibility beyond just the profit on that one deal?
Something to definitely reflect on. As you're out there looking for that next BRRR deal, think about the bigger picture, the market dynamics, and the community context after your system does its work.
Food for thought.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fascinating. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure. We'll catch you next time.